Welcome back to Paul's Politics in our new studio in Falmer House. We're in Falmer House. We're in a new studio, sparkling. We've got paintings on the wall. We've got a picture of me, of course, most important DJ in this radio station by a country. Well, no one else presents shows. It's all music, isn't it? Enough of that arrogance, because we move on to a much more important issue, and that is of love, a very confusing word. We all have different interpretations of it. What is your interpretation of love? Are you in love, Lily?
Yes, Paul. I would say that I'm in love. What is my interpretation of love?
Yeah.
That's a difficult one.
A whole new world. No, that's later.
I would probably say that love is...
all you need.
Yeah, love is all around.
Yeah, well, I know it's such a difficult question. It's such a very...
Do you mean like romantic love, Paul?
Yeah.
Okay.
Romantic love, that's what we're talking about.
I think it's when you could be alone, but you're with somebody because you'd rather be with them than be alone.
Do you have to be with them all the time? You need
be
to...
like friends. I'd rather be with friends than be on my own sometimes.
Yeah, but...
most of the time.
James.
With your friends, would you say that, like... Well, of course there's, like, the sort of romantic feelings that you have. And just also... I think that with friends you can be intimate, but I think that when it comes to being in a relationship, there's more intimacy.
I agree. I think that's
sharing
true.
on a whole new level.
I agree in the first part that you can be intimate with friends.
Ask Max about that.
On the other hand, I'm of the opinion that love is a disease. Disease of the mind, when you become dependent on the other person so much so that you end up isolated when the relationship inevitably breaks down.
But
Molly French Gerard, you're putting your thumbs up at me. You've got I've never seen you with such a wide smile. You obviously agree with me.
Love that, Paul.
I don't think that's true. I think that, like, if my relationship ended tomorrow, I'd still have friends around me and I wouldn't be...
Yeah, but what about long-term
It's kind of
relationships?
dependent on the love, you feel like it's a kind of... Like, I think often the problem with... I've got nothing against love, but I'm just saying that...
I've got nothing against love.
But there's this... I think there's a feeling that often people feel if they're not in love or they're not in a relationship, it's some kind of failure and they're, like, alone and it's... And
No.
they have to be pitied.
I think it's more exciting to be single, personally. But I would say that. Molly's winking at me from across the table. James Quinn, are you in love?
No, I'm not in love.
Oh.
Have you ever been in love, James?
No. Very boring.
It is.
I don't know. It's another interesting question because
Couples annoy me.
love does have symptoms, though, doesn't it? So bring back to this disease point. It's all that you do become dependent on them, and I think it's to me. I think it's so interesting that your brain like completely changes,
I think it does.
and your the way you act completely changes, and to me that I find that really interesting. So like someone who's in love would act completely differently to a scenario than someone that isn't.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know.
You act out of character, don't you?
Yeah.
Is it our duty? Is it our
I don't
duty to stop ourselves?
I think it is.
It is.
Yeah.
Stop ourselves from falling in love.
I think that, like, no, not to stop ourselves falling in love, but, like, I think that if there comes a point when you're acting too out of character, you've got to, like, take yourself aside and think, this isn't me, this is, like, this feeling that's speaking, and...
Yeah.
But in a way that, like, if you start acting completely differently around somebody that you love, is that real love? Because shouldn't you act as the person that you really want to be when you're around someone? So if you start like
that's lust, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. If you start sacrificing parts of your character and like I don't think that's real love, because often love is not just about the other person; it's about yourself as well.
Yeah.
So you see,
you feel comfortable.
I think it's when you feel comfortable around someone enough to.
We have got a text.
Oh.
Hello.
What? Okay. Okay. Well,
Oh my God.
this is from your boyfriend, Lily. Can we say his name on the show? He has texted to say.
Morning.
Morning.
Afternoon, actually.
He says this. Lillian, you are my Princess Leia. You light up my superstar destroyer like no one else. I love you and want to be with you forever. Your beautiful voice beaming to me through URF has made me realise that I want one thing, and one thing only. Will you marry me, Lily Cooper?
Steve.
You are my Death.
You idiot.
You are my Death Star.
Okay.
You think that's a prank?
Yeah, I definitely
Dick's-
think that's
Dick's
Steve
phone?
Barker. If that is
If,
Steve
if-
Barker or James Beeman,
If it was,
Answer the question.
yeah, answer the question.
I'm
If
not
Dick
gonna marry
did,
you.
oh wow,
Oh,
some love. Well, they said romance was dead, didn't they? But well, that's an awkward way to finish. And as we are going to finish this on quite a sour note, I'd like to give you our fact of the day. That did you know that wombats, when they excrete themselves, they and they have square poo. Their poo is square. That's a fact of the day that was sent in by a guest. Anyway, that was horrible. Next up, we'll talk about our guest Edward Mead, who can't join us today, but he's left us a message to read out to our loyal listeners. Oh yeah,
She's
by the
leaving,
way,
she's leaving.
Another
This
text
means-
from Dick. I'm off to live with the Ewoks. It's a sad day for Paul's politics. We end relationships as well as build up dreams and hopes. Okay,
Catchphrase.
Edward Mead couldn't be with us today because his train was late. What is going on with our railways? What do we need? We need to sort them out, don't we? We need to renationalise them, don't we?
There's going to be some teething issues while privatisation still has rolled in since 1904. You know, there's going to be some
Doesn't
teething
work.
issues. The second generation of private companies are going to have to face some problems, but
They're competing
once
on
we've bailed
one
them out,
track. They
we
can't
can,
genuinely compete.
Yeah, I think that people often fixate on how awful Margaret Thatcher was and how much damage she did to the country, but arguably, I think John Major did more damage by
because
privatising the
Thatcher
railway.
didn't privatise the railway. In
Yeah.
fact, she made it profitable.
Yes,
She made it
but
profitable.
actually Thatcher, fun fact, hated trains, and during her time in office, she only went on one train.
Yes, she said as well that she thought the managers were terrible. She used to mock them all the time. The managers of what was then British Rail.
But so basically, I think, trains are horrible. They should be so much cheaper. Public transport in general should be so much cheaper.
And don't you think it's a priority now that petrol prices are on the rise
Exactly,
and we
you can't-
don't see the
you
electric
can't
car
buy-
coming
you can't,
anytime soon?
Raise petrol prices and then raise public transport prices. It doesn't give you any option but to walk. Horse. Maybe I'll start breeding
That's what
horses.
the horse needs
Yeah,
to do.
exactly.
Bring back the
Bring
horse
back
and
the horse
cart.
and carriage, yeah.
Oh, Paul's politics.
Yes.
It's full of what
It's
we do on the show. We
revolutionary.
have loads of different debates and they all come
I
together.
think this could be profitable. If we just start now breeding cart horses, we will be the next millionaires.
and we can give those on
We'll be the
those
next cash crop.
those.
So it's better than my idea about a night bus in my
Those
town.
on the
That's
I
gonna
think
work.
I think everyone needs a night bus.
and
but-
those
Yeah.
those
Just
on
pick
the
up-
dole can go around picking up the horse droppings.
Oh,
There we go. Get them back into work, can't we?
Yeah, I was watching a documentary about the Irish potato famine last night, and I was talking to Robert about it just before the show, whilst I was nervously preparing as I normally do, and his opinion was that the Irish are, what were they? Spuds. He referred to the Irish
You're
as
taking my shit
idiots.
out of context.
Am
I love the Irish people.
Oh God!
I-
Change
I-
your tune when you're on
I
air.
don't like gypsies, but they're
Oh,
not
and they're all
Irish.
Irish, aren't
They're
they?
not- They're not all Irish. I didn't say that. I never said they're all Irish. He's dropping in this here. You're taking everything I said out of context.
Basically, you said, despite the fact that the famine was the fault of the British, you said it was the stupid Irish. Despite the
said
fact their
any-
population halved, and now you're saying the current troubles are all Ireland's fault, and they
How
and
can
no
they
one would
be
want to
all
live
Irish
there,
for- I did
and-
say that the UK, it's funny how they did leave the UK and now the UK's bailing them out. I just using that playing devil's advocate there, but that's all I said. That's as far as I went.
But back to the
Talking about Irish.
railways. Labour are really reluctant to commit to any kind of policy about the railways. They had Maria Eagle as the shadow transport secretary. There seems to be a real lack of
There's
any
nothing
kind of
at the
idea about what we do. We're building more
The
infrastructure.
Conservatives are just shying away of it by making, higher speed rail 2, and therefore they can just leave. the
It's
rest
not
of the
really
rail
very.
system
It's
to-
not good for social
Yeah.
mobility, is it? Having
No.
just a high-speed rail from London to Leeds.
Birmingham.
Whilst the rest
Not-
of the rail
Birmingham.
service is collapsing.
And our studio in Falmer,
apart.
House is collapsing around us. A vinyl has just fallen off the wall. The energy of Paul's politics transcends across the studio. It always does.
But
We were talking about love, weren't we?
We've just finished watching The Railway, haven't we? A series about
BBC
Network
Two.
Rail and
Yeah.
the rail, all the different jobs and things that happen across the rail system, and we were astonished by
How much waste?
how much wastage goes on in our rail
It's
system.
so overmanned. I think the problem is that Network Rail, who
Yeah,
basically
It's
maintain the railways,
nationalised.
they have a project. They have to build something, and they just take ages. You have about 20 people standing around
For a two-man job.
doing nothing.
Yeah, but the problem as well with the privatisation is we see fares going up and up, but it doesn't mean that it goes into making rail.
Of
like,
course not. Yeah, it
the
goes
trains
to
better,
it goes
so
to shareholders.
exactly.
It's very
So
silly.
It's a problem
Yeah.
where we see our I mean, like for me, I don't know about what it's like for you, but if I want to travel from where I live on the train to Brighton,
It was £55 return
yeah,
for me
it's
to get back
insane.
to
Like, even with a
Exmouth.
young person's rail card, it's
Yeah,
like,
with that as
Is that
well.
the
Yeah.
rail card?
That was with the rail card. £55 return.
yeah.
And you
I
can-
live in a place that's got the it's between Colchester and Ipswich. It's the most expensive stretch of rail in England.
And you've really because
Is it a good rail service?
No, it's a terrible rail
Terrible.
service. It's always late.
It's-
There's always
yeah.
something wrong, and the trains just.
trains
Oh,
are really
okay.
important for
Wherever.
us on campus as well because it's very difficult. You can't park on campus
Yeah.
in your first year. You can't. It's very difficult to get in because of the traffic, and you have to shop around to get a really cheap
Exactly,
ticket,
and it's
which is
ridiculous
wrong,
where
isn't
It
it?
just seems insane that like
Everyone
you
has to use it.
Yeah, and but also it ruins you when you go abroad and you use like other trains like from other countries and they're so cheap, and then you come back here and it's just like I like when I actually went on the Trans-Mongolia, so that's getting a train from Russia all the way to China.
What was that? What was that like?
It was pretty amazing. What
But
can
the
you say?
train experience was the train
well,
nice?
the trains varied, but they were so cheap, and it felt like I'd go on like a 3-day journey, and it would be cheaper than going on like a 20-minute journey.
You pay what you get, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, you might get. You think you get more, maybe. But I think in this country, you pay first world prices for a third world service. Look at London. You have
Third world, perhaps
it is a
being
third world.
slightly
If you look
extreme.
look, you have people collapsing on platforms, collapsing on trains.
happens
Dehydrating
everywhere
in London.
anyway.
It's awful because they're packed in.
You're
like
really
traffic.
You're exaggerating, perhaps. How
Have you
bad
been?
the
Have you
situation
been in
is.
London?
That bad. It's
No.
not like a train
Have you-
train
It's
holocaust.
causing
People
problems.
are
Russia.
dying. People are collapsing. There's a plague.
Have you been to
Diseases
one?
are spreading.
Have you been to a London station?
Yes,
rush
of course
hour?
I have.
It's awful.
Yeah, it's bad. But
Waterloo.
then what are you like? This,
Charing Cross.
but also, I actually do love the London Underground. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I
love
do. I
my-
think it's a fantastic
I'm attached to
invention.
my Oyster card. I love it.
Yes, I love it as well.
It's the-
Service.
Yeah,
But
I love the
Jesus,
map.
I tried
Brilliant
going on
system,
it
fantastic
every time.
invention, wasn't
Yeah,
it? the
exactly. And I
London
love how
worked so
people
well.
get attached to lines. People are like, oh, you like the Northern Line. Oh, I like the Central Line.
On that
that's
sad,
a bit-
depressing,
yeah.
miserable note, we move on. Next on the show, we'll be speaking to Nelson Mandela.